Japanese. Let's see if we can maybe set up some buoys, conduct naval patrols. What do we actually need? We're low on legitimacy, so we can probably bolster it up a little bit. Yeah, so let's set up some buoys in Japanese waters, just for a little bit of fun. And I do like how we actually at least get a pop-up being like, hey, you've got some missions that you can actually do. Otherwise, I would 100% forget to send the boys out. Is there anything else we can do? Promote American officers. I mean, cohesion still seems good. Again, we're going to be getting an extra, like, 12 very, very soon. And I don't think we need to worry about, okay, New Zealand has, like, no support whatsoever. But they're going to get a little bit more with these comm links. No risk too small. Kenneth Wallman kept his hands behind his back and watched as the heart of McMurdo's nuclear reactor came to life. The loud thuds that echoed across the building every time they probed the core were something that Wallman had grown to be accustomed to. He could see the excited glances that the new engineers shared with one another. No one could blame them. McMurdo Station's nuclear reactor was truly a sight to behold, helping to sustain the lives of up to 1,500 people in the largest settlement on the continent. And all that thanks to the core being not much bigger than an oil drum. His new colleagues kept their childlike wonder as he took them around the facility. Nuclear energy was a potential to bring good to many people. The new researchers were evidently thrilled about it, and Wallman couldn't say he wasn't too. But no matter how much time he spent near it, every time Wallman looked at the small core, every time he heard its ominous call, he felt itching doubt. The director was powerful, but fragile. A small slip could upend the OFN's entire Antarctic project. Worse than that, it could cost lives. Too many of them. He couldn't let that happen, and not on his watch. He turned to a new engineer and put on his best smile. Let's review the safety procedures. Okay, we basically have already kicked out New Zealand. Like, immediately, we've already told New Zealand to fuck off. Not really, like, that wasn't my intention. We might actually have to promote some New Zealand officers as well. We need to make sure that New Zealand isn't mad at us. Which I definitely think that they will be. Because you boost up their support by 8. So we're going to get like an extra 10. Which, I mean, that sounds good. A phone call. When Howard Beale was assigned to Antarctica, the last thing he expected to do was frequently pick up the phone. Telecommunications didn't exist in Antarctica until very recently, when the OAA installed a series of landlines that interconnected the entire territory to Australia and New Zealand, and, by extension, the rest of the world. So when the phone rang, Beale truly had no idea who was calling. Today, however, Beale would be the one doing the calling. He needed to speak to the counterparts back in Australia, responsible for handling the logistics of the Australian contingent of the OFN's territory on the continent. Listen, he said, we can exert more influence over how the territory is used, it's managed, its personnel, but to do that, we need infrastructure to keep pace with the Americans. I'm not asking for the moon. I'm asking for a few bloody snowcats. Beale waited for the man on the other end of the line to finish his customary spiel about logistical difficulties and transit times, before adding, I know the cabinet's going to get the transcripts of this call, so I will say this. A moment is fast approaching when Australia can make a great contribution to world freedom. A moment to police our own backyard and strike back against the Japanese enemy who jump at the chance to have us blockaded, starving on our knees. You ask me. A few snowcats and habitats is a small price to pay to stop that from happening. Choice is yours, gents. Okay, we've already kicked out Australia. We've already told New Zealand 100%. Fuck off. I think we need to immediately once again consult with Hillary. Because we need New Zealand to get some more points here. Because I'm assuming cohesion goes down a lot if, you know, New Zealand feels like they are, you know, in a bad spot. Also, we have no policies whatsoever. You know, that makes sense. By the way, you ministers, Howard Beale, William Rip Robertson. Okay. Departure. Will Rip Robertson watched the coast of Antarctica recede in these troop ship wake. He was glad to be putting the cold behind him. Antarctica was never his long-term mission, and he couldn't care less for the politicking of other territories. For all intents and purposes, MACA-SOG, Military Assistance Command, Antarctica, Studies and Observation Group, was at the front for all of Rip's secret work in the Indian Ocean, ranging from the east coast of Africa to the Philippines. Antarctica itself was a sideshow, a convenient excuse to reallocate resources to Rip's area. For today's trip, Antarctica, or rather, Vice Admiral Reborn, had provided the cover of a ship bursting with reinforcements for the Malaysian freedom fighters, a perfect guise for the agents of the Central Intelligence Agency. Rip turned away from the frozen shoreline towards fellow CIA operative Grayson Litch and said, "I look forward to the jungles of Malaysia. Anything is better than this shithole." Lynch offered Rip a cigarette. "I kind of like this place," Lynch said. "Yeah, it's got its own charm." "Well, that's because you're a cold-hearted bastard. But, to each his own." Lynch grinned, and he lowered his voice. "Operating sequence is on schedule. The boys are perfectly convincing as Japanese infantrymen, and only a few need refresher courses on Japanese. The rest were fluent, and the rest were fluent. As a matter of fact, we better be careful that they don't get seen by our guys. We wouldn't want Americans shooting Americans." "Japanese Americans," Rip corrected. The start of something. "This enables the CIA decision category. Division management options are now available in the officers tab. We gain 60 infantry equipment, 10 anti-tank equipment, 20 support equipment, and 5 motorized. We'll be able to send 1 more volunteer force to the United Malaysian Anti-Japanese Force." Oh, do I have a unit? Hey, look at us go, man. We have our 1 unit, who I'm assuming we have to send to Malaysia, because, like, why else would they tell us we could do this? Okay, so let's send our volunteer force. Oh, we actually need to assign this unit to an army. That makes perfect sense. We will send them to Grayson Lynch. You also have an upgrade. You're not sure. Skirmisher, I think that seems reasonable. We will send you to Malaysia, and not to the Japanese Malaysia. I can't. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Send them over. Send them over. Fantastic. I like how they're like, okay, we can't just have people who play Antarctica do nothing. We need to send them, like, we need to give them, like, 1 unit that they can command. Otherwise, our player base will go crazy. And I think that's, that seems fair. Okay, our unit has now arrived. Wait, does that mean that, like, the United States doesn't actually send volunteers now? We send a volunteer instead in their wake? That might actually be the case, which is very interesting, actually. Okay. Dreaming at the edge of the world. The crunch of snow beneath the boots of greeted Edmund Hillary as he emerged from his tent. Stretching into the hazy sky, he admired the view. This was a dream. Living on the edge of civilization, exploring the furthest reaches of the earth, and working with like-minded scientists and explorers. If only life had been could be so simple. Unfortunately for Hillary and his dreams, the land before him was scattered and divided by infernal offsprings of empires. A state of Cold War reigned over the continent, just as it did over the wider world. The exploration of the planet, one of the endeavors of intrepid pioneers, was now solely carried out in the name of expansion and one-upmanship. That is why Hillary was eagerly accepting his position, representing New Zealand in the OAA. He was here to see the sights and challenge himself, of course. But the moment that he got an invitation from the government, he knew this was his moment to dream bigger. He yearned for slices of the world, however small, primarily committed to the preservation and expansion of the human spirit. It might seem like a distant fantasy now, but as God was his witness, he would do his best to see it done. If not easy. Attempting to pursue a policy of humanism in these harsh environments, Raborn, Beale, Reedy, these were men wholly focused on carrying out their orders or looking out for their own self-interest. Were they bad men? No. Hillary liked them well enough. But they did not share his vision for a peaceful and cooperative administration. One that would spite the Germans and the Japanese by working with others, not shunning them and turning inwards. Gazing into the snowy fields, he was warned by a wanton determination, searching for hope, and the exile gazed back. I do like the I do like how they're calling Antarctica in these events the exile. I think it's very kind of neat. You expect the colonize of Antarctica? I mean, I can see the Germans doing it for sure. 10 air supply we cannot do because we only have 15 command power. We get 0.5 per day, which honestly is not that bad. Okay. MACA SOG operations. Military Assistance Command Antarctica Studies and Operations Groups was officially assigned to Antarctica by the United States Central Intelligence Agency to support the OFN Antarctic Administration against incursions and subterfuges by the Germans and Japanese. However, strictly out the books, MACA SOG provides support for various forms of OFN military operations and native uprisings in and around the Indian Ocean, using resources and men funneled through Antarctica. Ideally, these operations will be conducted in and remain secret. So we have to, okay, so we got to kind of go through this here. I think that this little CIA minigame could be very, very interesting in the future. I'm assuming it's going to play out in Indonesia. I'm assuming it's going to play out in Antarctica and also in South Africa. So it's kind of interesting that they might switch some of the things that you would do as the U.S. over to the OFN. I'm assuming as the main United States, you'd still have some say in things. But it's kind of interesting how they're kind of moving things around. The lost soldiers. As the 4 Japanese servicemen trudged through the Malaysian jungle, they were approached by 2 lost-looking Japanese infantry. Thank God we finally found somebody, one of the men began. We got separated from a unit, and we haven't been seeing any friendly faces in days. By the way, can we have some of your water? Yes, of course, the officer said, handing over his canteen. Give this other man your canteen, the officer ordered one of his men. What's your unit? 422nd, the lost man said, draining his canteen. I'm Saito, but folks just call me Lefty. And here's Takai. I've not heard of the 442nd. That's because we're new here, Takai interrupted. Our unit stationed by Hill 130 by Garrick. The officer whistled. It's quite a ways from here. How did you end up so far away? Like I said, we're lost, Takai continued. Could you point us out the direction of your headquarters? Sure thing, the officer said, pulling out a map. Now, we're here, the man said, pointing out his map, and HQ is over there. We've been instructed not to mark HQ on our map so that the Songkoks won't know where HQ is if they capture our bodies, but I assure you, it's here. Thank you so much, Takai said, as he and Lefty drew their pistols and shot the officers and his men. Ready to command? I'll get this cleaned up, Takai began. And real fucking funny, by the way. You telling them we're for the 442nd, Takai said, berating a chuckling Lefty. Olympus is Athens. I have those coordinates for you. Radio and cigarettes. What did they change with the OFN? Well, because we are now like Antarctica, it seems like the volunteer forces that you would normally send to, let's say, Malaysia, are now being handled by the Antarctica tag, because we're actually the ones sending the volunteers, not the actual U.S. government, so to speak. Radio and cigarettes. As codename Athens reached out the coordinates over the radio, Olympus, aka William Rip Robertson, leaned back in his chair, sucking on a cigarette. Tell you what, Grayson, it's like shooting pigs in a barrel. I don't think that... never mind. My concern, Grayson Litch continued, was always in the cleanup. Those soldiers are extremely capable, but shit happens. And we cannot afford for much shit to happen. Dear God, imagine if this got out. There's no lawyering your way out of this. This is a war crime. Nobody's going to find out if we're smart about this. Besides, Rip continued, those bastards deserve it. I lost more brothers than I can count with their fake surrenders. As far as I'm concerned, this is some well-deserved payback for playing dirty. At least, we're not putting them on fucking death marches. Don't get it wrong. I'm not making a fucking moral case against this op. I'm just saying we better cross our T's and dot our I's. Done bitching? So that we can call in the airstrike, Rip said, turning to exhale smoke. Rip, this isn't a joke. We've got to be diligent about this, lest we end up out of a job or worse. I'm sure to keep that in mind, Lich. Now, let me smoke and radio the bomber in peace. Okay. We can definitely take this city. Prime Minister of Australia has resigned. I don't know how that's going to affect us too much. I don't think too much. I would hope, at least. Now, unfortunately, it looks like the Japanese might end up winning this war, which is very, very unfortunate for us. Okay, we do have also some more task force that we can send out. Oh, we can send out 6. We need more militarization. We need more legitimacy. These are kind of our 2 top priorities, I would say. Do we have any special missions that we can see? I mean, there's still this one, but I honestly don't know what the... I don't know what it is. We can definitely spend supplies. Is it revealed classified foreign intelligence? No. Yeah, okay, I literally have no idea. But let's do expedition into foreign territory with you. Let's actually do that twice. We have a lot of supplies. I think that's probably worthwhile. For you... I mean, I think we really need to spend more supplies. Can I spend supplies? Oh, we can also do intelligence. We've got a lot of intelligence against Chile and Argentina, so we can definitely spend our points here. Let's preempt some enemy scouts in these regions. And that's 4 out of 6. Is there a difference if we go to, say, the capital? Blackmail. Okay, there's some slight difference. Well, we'll get 2 eyeballs. I don't know how that actually means, but sure. Let's blackmail foreign officials here and here. That'll be, I think, 6 out of 6. We're going to blackmail Chile and Argentina because, again, what the fuck are they going to do? Nothing at all, I would say. And I think our unit is really, really, really strong. Athens is a powerful, powerful unit, which I think will be nice for us. But again, we do need to get our legitimacy up. It's not where we really want it to be. Probably because we spent so much of it on these little mini games. I don't think we need to really worry about that too much, at least right now. Homecoming. Not since the shipment of Christmas presents from home had such a crowd gathered at the airstrip in McMurdo. A plane battling headwinds on its way to landing wasn't carrying alcohol, cigarettes, or any other sundries which made life in Antarctica bearable. It was carrying a legend. Despite the blistering cold, soldiers and scientists grinned as the plane touched down and ground to a halt. Whispers spread like wildfire. He was on Scott's expedition in 1910, some said. He was the first person to find Scott's body. Others had marked that he was the most experienced Antarctic explorer still breathing, and that he was the polymath whose scientific acumen ranged from the earthly to the cosmic, from the development of radar to the study of the sea. Howard Beale stood next to Rear Admiral Reedy on the tarmac as the plane's doors slowly opened. I knew the Canadians were sending a liaison, an expert, said Beale, but Jesus, a survivor of Scott of the Antarctic expedition? I read every word this man's written about magnetic countermeasures, said Reedy. If we're more readily adopted his proposals, the fight against the wolf packs might have gone differently. Now he's here, maybe we can take the fight to the damn Nazis. I'm sure he's got many ideas to improve overland travel. A shadow filled the plane door, and the sunlight fell on Sir Charles Seymour Wright. He said at 75 years old, he was still a spry, energetic man. And he nearly bounded down the stairs and with a smile on his face. The crowd cheered and applauded as the Commonwealth of Canada made his presence known in Antarctica. Reich shook Beale's hand. Good to be back, he said. Let's get to work. So once again, the most important person in any kind of geographic area, of course, is a Canadian. You know? Most important man in Antarctica, he's Canadian. Most important man in the United States, currently, Justin Bieber, Canadian. You know? Like, this is just facts. Okay? And, you know, in any continent, in any country, the most important person there is Canadian. Okay? This is just 100% true. Fidel Castro's consolidated power, fun fact, also Canadian. Did you know that? You know, it's a little known secret, okay? It's a little known. Also, are the Japanese like wasting all their manpower? It kind of looks like it. Like, our unit's pretty good. I don't know if we can actually get like more supplies to him personally. I think do we just like get passive? I'm not too sure. But it does seem like the UMAJF is pushing a little bit in southern Malaysia, which I think is nice. The most important person in the history of YouTube, Canadian. Exactly. We all know Mr. Beast is Canadian. Call and response. When Vice Admiral Reborn first communicated the results of the Nazi nuclear test to his superiors, he had no idea the scale of the response that they would provoke. He naturally anticipated that the successful detonation of a Nazi atomic weapon on the Antarctic ice would set off alarm bells in Washington. But the deluge of calls he received, told him that Washington wasn't going to take this lying down. Now, staring at the written orders in front of him, he tried to put together the pieces. Several engineer units were being reassigned to Antarctica, ostensibly to set up infrastructure and establish new defense networks. But their accompanying material was far in excess of the jobs that they were expected to do. The personnel list also struck Reborn as odd. Dozens of doctors of various fields, not exactly the type to hoist shovels in the frozen dark. Clearly their missions wasn't just solely about shoring up the infrastructure. Apparently he was expecting a visit from some high-ranking officers in the Army Corps of Engineers as well, although further details were sparse. Reborn was no stranger to military secrecy. He climbed his way up the ranks of the Navy. He wasn't concerned that he was being kept out of the loop, but it begged the question. If the Vice Admiral of the United States Navy wasn't being told what the men under his command were really up to, just how serious was this project? Reborn was still relatively a newcomer in Antarctica, but if he was there's one thing that he had learned about the continent, it was that it was vast, and there were plenty of spaces to hide things. He just hoped that it wouldn't be hidden from him for too much longer. Okay, so again, we can basically defend pretty well. Hold your position here. Yeah, we were able to push them back ever so slightly. Okay, we need 30 command power in order to get to the next stage of you. And that's going to give us more. It's going to make our unit a little bit better, which I think is nice. By the way, who is the most important person in the history of YouTube? Like, I don't think I could actually even think of a name. Or who would be, like, the most important. Other than, you know, maybe, like, the people who, like, made the website. Oh, okay. An unprecedented proposition. I get that times are changing, but Edmund, are you insane? A woman in Antarctica? Let alone one of an independent research mission. It'd be a disaster. It's as plain as that. Like, women... Like, where are they going to shop? In Antarctica. It doesn't make any sense. Radborn and Hillary were been talking in circles for 3 hours now. Hillary had long been a proponent of opening OFN Antarctic bases to the other sex. If they didn't, then they were no better than Jerry or the so-called Pan-Asians. But despite the consent of all OFN member states, it had yet to happen. Even the National Science Foundation was starting to amend their previous declarations on the topic. So Hillary argued, why the hell didn't the U.S. Navy simply rescind its policy on transporting women to Antarctica? He had been wearing Radborn down for months now, pestering him with weekly meetings on the subject. But the Vice Admiral had yet to budge. Thankfully for Hillary, he had made a plan, and now that was just about the time to announce it. Think what you like, William, but if you won't sign off on it, then I'll have her brought in some other way. It's not as though this administration is taking a stance on her presence, so I don't see why she wouldn't be welcomed. Reborn, sighing heavily, put his pen down and staring down at Hillary with the first time at this meeting. It's not as though she'll be able to get here without the acceptance of the Navy. They patrol these waters, and the moment they catch whiff of this little stunt, they'll be ready to send her straight back home. Ah, yes, the U.S. Navy, the guardian of the free and enlightened world, going to, very publicly, send a single harmless woman back home over some outdated policies. I've already contacted some friends in New York to start assessing candidates and prepare a ship for New Zealand. All that's left for you to do is decide to let her dock. Reborn blanched slightly, quietly stating that he will see what he can do. Person I'm watching now. Oh, that's very sweet. First impressions. Attention! Simon Peskowicz stood up at attention as the CO opened a door to the radio station. This is Takai Tabihana and Matthew Chow. They are radio operators from New Zealand and Australia, and just now are your new co-workers. His CEO ordered Simon at ease and promptly left, leaving the three men to their own device. You boys want coffee? Team, the two strangers said, tea and synchronization. Minutes later, they sat in a comfortable chairs at the radio shack, ready to pick each other's brains. You know, you guys had the closest job at McMurdo Station. Simon studied at the Australian Up and Down. If his accent and mannerisms were Australian, he had mistaken Matt for a Japanese soldier. Is that so? The Australian questioned. Yep. Yep. Take right now, for example. We got a broadcast in 5 minutes, but after that, we're off the air for 5 hours. You can tell me your life story. Let's start with... Simon reached into his pocket and flipped a coin, and it landed on tails. Matthew. The Australian took a sip of tea. Well, to learn about me, I gotta tell you about my parents. They fled Chongqing with a sack of rice hours ahead of the Japanese. Barely evaded them. And once they resettled in Australia, they barely escaped deportation. I got 2 brothers, and they were all in the Navy. That's the short of it. Matthew and Simon stared at the New Zealander sitting betwixt them. Matt knew that he was Maori, but Simon never seen a Maori in his life. All right. I'm from Wengoria. You've never heard of it. I used to be a fisherman in the family business, but the Japanese overfished our village. I had to join the army to help my family pay for the bills. This is the gist of it, yeah. Simon, who had opted for coffee instead, took a sip and smiled. Takai, Matthew, welcome to 104.5 at Murdo FM. This wonderful place is our working space. I've got a coffee machine, couches, a hot plate, and even emergency snacks. Don't tell anyone, though. But most importantly, we've got a space heater. Matthew and Takai started to get the feeling that they had hit the lottery. Matthew knew that they were going to be on the air soon, but he nevertheless had one final inquiry. That's great and all, but aren't you going to tell us about yourself, Simon? Simon nodded. Sure thing, but after we are off the air. Excellent. Okay, turn all these off because we're never, ever going to need to really spend those points. You are probably going to die, which I mean is not great. Rescue prisoner of war, forge ballots, purchase plantation. Is there any way like I can encircle you? I don't really think so. So you can go here or here. The problem is I can't really just let the Malaysians do what they want, because I do think the Japanese would just kill them immediately. Which is not great. Okay, we can now send the air supply. That'll be done in 30 days. Grayson Lynch has fallen ill. Fantastic. Okay, we'll just like switch you out for William Rip Robertson, who actually can be upgraded to... Let's actually go for... Yeah, let's go offensive doctrine. Never mind, not enough command power for that. Worry about that another day. Where the cherry blossoms bloom. Herman Flegger walked alongside John Kennedy on what the vice president had promised him would be the most beautiful riverside stroll. The cherry blossom that bloomed early this year in D.C., and it was as good a backdrop as any for the old acquaintances to catch up. Though not without their seconds, Paul Daniels and Robert Kennedy, trailing behind him and talking animatedly. Flegger knew that the Kennedys, well, from his time at Harvard Law, and watched JFK's meteoric rise from his position from Ike's DOS. They hadn't met since Flegger had been in charge of the OAA, which meant that he had seen plenty of tales of the bitter cold with which to regale to the vice president. You may sound so bleak down there. Surely there's some brotherly spirit for your with your fellows. There's a title I feel like I wanted to bring up. Fortunately, there's less than you might think. The troops get along fine, but each representative nation has its own vision for the continent, and I'll admit, I'm worried about what might happen if those disagreements were to flare up. Kennedy was silent for a moment. The chatter of their followers and the lapping of the river, the only sounds with fresh spring air. That does warrant some consideration. The State Department briefed me on possible conciliatory measures. Our security interests aren't under any threat, though, are they? No, that's something that we can all agree on, even if they're more hesitant about introducing new defenses. In fact, the Navy and the CIA operations based out of the continent are a model to which we should hold all our projects to. Indeed, I feel that those southern wastes hold up more potential than we yet know. We just need to be ready to grasp it. Now then, if we could discuss this year's budget for Antarctica. So America's going to get 8 more points. Again, not really what I want, because again, I do want... this seems like fairly fine. I think all things considered. Again, our unit is doing very, very well. But we have to be smart. We can't victory point rush, because I'm almost certain that we're going to get encircled and die, and that'll feel very stupid. We want to avoid that outcome as much as humanly possible. Okay, we have more. Are we still? How many do we have? 2 more we can send out. Again, any special missions that we can do. I do like these TNO songs. I wonder if I can actually. Can I add them to like my other campaigns as well? Assuming they're not copyrighted, which I don't know if they are or not. Okay, let's go into how much supplies do we have? 98. Again, I think we just send our supplies to get more legitimacy. I think that seems good. You know, I'm happy for it. Okay, you're at 70. These like the actual Japanese divisions are really, really powerful. Which is unfortunate. Turkish government negotiates with spring protest.